Good evening, everybody, and welcome to round number 9 of the UK&I Radical Race Series. My name is Daniel Handover, and joining me in the commentary box this evening, for the second time in a row, actually, joining us for the UK Radical Race Series is Mr. Tim Fulbrook. Tim, how are you doing this evening?
Good evening, Daniel. It's great to be back, mate. Honestly, thank you very much for having me along. I really enjoyed the racing last time out at Phillip Island. It was a perfect window into what this championship has to offer. Thrills and spills and some very fast radical drivers. And I get the feeling going to get exactly the same this evening here at Road Atlanta.
Certainly so. Very, very true indeed. We saw some very, very good action, you were saying last week from round 8, Phillip Island. It's a similar sort of circuit, and said lots of fast corners here. A couple of slow speed corners, mainly medium to fast. Red Atlanta certainly sees that. We've got a little bit of a lot of elevation change here, and more importantly, we've actually got an opportunity for a little slipstreaming. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of moves coming down into 10A and 10B this particular race, so do keep an eye out for that. It's a slightly different format this time, however. We do have a slightly longer race, around 35 to 40 minutes. It's going to be 30 laps here at Road Atlanta, and then there is a pit stop as well that everyone will be going through. So that, compared to Tim, for example, from yourself last week, it's a very, very different strategy, isn't it, this time out?
Plenty more to think about for the drivers. And chatting post-race, we heard that you can take the tyres on these radicals a full race distance, but a circuit like Phillip Island, which shares many characteristics with Road Atlanta, there's a lot of high load, long radius corners and some technical sequences where you're really loading up the tyres and making them work. Using them across a race stint involves some sort of management, but with a pit stop, that kind of changes the game really, because now you know that you've got two options really. Do you just abuse the tyres in your stint and take some at the pit stop and lose more time? I'm sure there are rules over what the drivers can and can't do in the pit stops, but look, it definitely adds another element of strategy to it. Get out of traffic, or find yourself some clean air, or maybe finally everyone else around you has pitted and you've got that clean air and you want to go longer. It's certainly going to add another element to this evening's race.
Very, very true indeed. You are absolutely correct. We are seeing some qualifying times start to come in. Paul Crabb currently leading the way, but again, we have a lot of lap times still to come through. John Hutchinson is one of those drivers who will be coming through for his first flying lap. A couple of purple sectors in there. Simon Edwards goes through up into P2. Well, he's in P2 for his first flying lap, and then there is going to be. We've got a lot of drivers going to come through. We've got around about 18 or 19 on the grid for this evening. We see a lot of people move up. Paul LeMay has just gone up into P9. Phil Jocelyn currently sitting in 10th. Dave Dowson 11th. Martina Ward in 12th. And then Kirkman in 13th. They are the only people that have set lap times. Importantly, look at the gap. Right, this is just absolutely staggering. Look at the gap between Dave Dowson and Martina Ward. Also, look at the gap between Phil Glover and Michael LeMay. Less than half of a tenth between both of those drivers. And less than 5,000th of a second between Martina Ward and Kirkman. Paul Crabb has just gone through it and has extended his lead, currently to 0.3 of a second. No, I tell you what, Simon Edwards has just seen to that, and now he takes provisional pole position. Oh, it is going to be close. Look at the sea of orange, as we can see. And just for everyone to remind themselves, anything under yellow, anything yellow on the interval time and out on your left-hand side, that indicates that it is less. The gap is less than a second. Anything that is in orange indicates it's less than half a second. And bar 2 spots, now 3, it is all orange.
Well, I think we need to add in red for if it's less than a tenth, because I feel like there'd be a fair few reds on that left-hand side. This is just how close this championship is. But looking at the standings, look at the points the way they are, like to Simon Edwards, coming off the back of a dominant performance at Phillip Island. He's just repeating that performance again this evening. But John Hutchinson didn't race last time. He's back now here, and he finds himself in 5th place, and he's got some work to do to start closing down and making up for the lost time, obviously with the drop score system in place. But every point counts, and at the end of the day, every single race performance is going to count in towards that final score.
It certainly is indeed. What is Simon Edwards going to do for his next lap? Is it going to be an improvement? It is an improvement. So Simon Edwards retakes the lead after John Hutchinson put in a very, very good lap for the second, for the third and final flying lap. I think we're seeing a lot of drivers now will be finishing their laps here. We've got Graham Brown doing a very, very respectable job, currently in P4. Simon Edwards, you can see on the top, his timing has grayed out, so there won't be any additional positions gained for Simon Edwards. He may even lose positions, depending on who can pull in some times. Does Graham Brown improve on his previous lap time? No, he does not. Certainly Frankie Dixon, is he going to improve on his final flying lap as we go through? Is there an improvement? Yes, there is. Frankie Dixon goes up into P4. This is so very close. I am very much looking forward to this race. It's going to be interesting. It's also going to be very interesting because, again, we have changed, haven't we? We've changed the with this different strategy. We might see this a little bit, people might try some different strategies here, which is also very, very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. With the length of the race, it's not that much longer, roughly, than the iRacing events that this series seems to, mirror the schedule of. We see events around 25 to 28 minutes, and it's only really 10 minutes more. Obviously, a lot of racing can happen in 10 minutes, but in terms of tyre strategy, etc., it's not really that much more to cause you a headache. Ideally, the headache's going to be just when do you make that pit stop, and we're going to have to see how they choose to play that card. But interestingly enough, Daniel, before we hopped onto the broadcast, I thought I'd have a look and see what kind of times are being set in iRacing servers. The races that this series mirrors. So, of course, you can go and race in these radicals on the iRacing platform at Road Atlanta in a similar format. They were setting times, pole position times, in the 1:15s I saw in quite a few servers. Here we are, similar format as Martina Ward has a spin at the top of the hill. Simon Edwards a 1:13.9. So this just shows you the level that these guys are at, how much skill they've got in these radicals, how much time and work they've put into developing and learning to drive these cars. They're 2 seconds faster than people who are out there and all these servers with high I ratings, etc. Just shows you the level of competition we've got here.
It certainly does indeed. That is it for qualifying at the moment. We are going to bring you the full finishing results in a couple of moments' time. Once they've gone through, obviously, then we'll be able to bring the grid, and then we'll be able to crack on with this race, of which we are both very, very excited to do. Big thank you again to iLounge Racing and HPE Automotive for sponsoring the Radical Race Series. A pleasure to have them on board, as always. I think this is something that we've actually seen. We've seen this develop further and further. I mean, have a look. So nobody, and I repeat, nobody is more than half a second away from one another. Now, what we've also got as well, we've got 2 groups here. We've got Group 1 and we've also got Group 2 as well, which is actually made to imagine that's the same sort of thing as what you would find within official iRacing splits. And that also, Tim, as well, provides a nice bit of... It allows that everyone, regardless of what group they're in, it means that there is good racing to be had throughout the entirety of the field, which I think is a very, very important thing for us to, to touch on.
Absolutely. I've seen it. I've obviously watched back the races from before and earlier on in the season before coming to do commentary for Phillip Island. And then I saw it on display at Phillip Island. Doesn't matter if you're fighting for P1 in the top split or you're fighting for P18 in the bottom split. Throughout the order, there is great racing, great battles to be had. And more importantly, it's hard, fair racing. Everyone here is here to have a good time and enjoy the action. And you get the feeling there's a real sense of community and everyone wanting to get along and enjoy the racing. That's what it's all about, Dan. And I'm sure you and I are going to be sat here in the virtual commentary box enjoying it from afar, because it's just great to see such a close field, so many drivers within, like you say, a matter of tenths of a second, if that.
Certainly so. And it means that it is going to be one hell of a race. We do know that, don't we? A few more minutes to go, and then we will be bringing you up the qualifying results, and arguably the straight after the grid results as well. In fact, I think it may actually go straight through, and we'll give you the grid. You saw on the left-hand side of your timing tower that Simon Edwards was taking provisional pole, but by 0.2 of a second, one of the bigger gaps, surprisingly, believe it or not, that's one of the bigger gaps that we've seen within this grid. We've only got one we've got 2 or 3 gaps that are separate. Actually, no, we've got about 5 or 6 gaps that are separated by less than a tenth of a second. Absolutely madness. Here, we'll get the grid is going to come up for you in a few moments' time. And in fact, here it is. So Simon Edwards will be taking that pole position, as you can see. John Hutchinson in P2, with then Paul Crabb in 3rd. Frankie Dixon takes P4. Mike Busson in 5th. Graham Brown takes P6th, with Paul LeMay in 7th. Paul Clark in P8, with Martin Booker in P9. And then Patrick Charlton rounds out your top 10. Jamie Thomas 11th, Michael LeMay in P12. We're going to have to go through the grid relatively quickly into the final few grid slots. Martina Ward, Dave Dowson, Dave Kurtman, Phil Jocelyn, Phil Glover, Tom Langwebb, and Tim Adcock. That is your grid for this round. Are we ready to go, Tim?
Absolutely. You know, look at this grid. It's fantastic to have so many guys and girls here racing this evening. 19 radicals. There is a lot of space actually to go around at Road Atlanta. So you wouldn't think it, but there's a lot of opportunity for overtaking, a lot of opportunity to run side by side as well, particularly through the very fast turn 1. And in these radicals, which have so much downforce, it's certainly a roller coaster ride.
It certainly is. Oh, that was a bit of a jump there. 5 lights are on. Away we go. Here it is. Who's going to get the jump? Who isn't going to get the jump? I tell you, one person that didn't. That was a big moment there. Was that Paul Crabb? Yes, Paul Crabb has lost several positions already on the start. He jumped it, and I'm guessing he was trying to just stop himself from getting any penalties or anything as such. Oh, there's a spin as well. That's Martin Booker that's gone off. A couple of other people have gone off. Phil Jocelyn. Paul Clark has lost even more positions. Certainly not what they would have wanted at this early stage of the race. We're going to get a few replays come up for you. As you can see, top left-hand corner of your screen, 30 laps or 29 laps to go. It is a big gap already between Graham Brown and Jamie Thomas. So that would have been due to that the few little issues that we had. You can see that we've got Clark in the pits as well. Meanwhile, straight to the front. Look at that. John Hutchinson, he's not waiting about, is he? Neither is Simon Edwards. They're battling incredibly hard. This is possibly going to allow Frankie Dixon to have a bit of a move. That then does mean that as it stands at the moment, the top 5 are still, arguably actually the top 6, are within drafting opportunities. There is that gap between Graham Brown and Jamie Thomas. So there are already 2 battles having developed here and 2 different races developed here. Although, long way to go. Simon Edwards sends it. Sorry, John Hutchinson sends it up the inside. That's a late move. Wow. Very committed on the brakes there was John Hutchinson. Bear in mind, these tyres are stone cold. They started from a rolling start. From a standing start. They have had no opportunity whatsoever to warm their tyres up, which I find absolutely astounding, because that was commitment there for John Hutchinson on the brakes. And it looks to be possibly that Simon Edwards and Hutchinson have broken a bit of a tie. I imagine that Simon Edwards wasn't too fussed about fighting it early on for that move going into 10A, simply because they're going to try and want to sort of pull each other along. Look at John Hutchinson, though. The gap has extended now. It's 7/10 of a second already in the space of about 6 corners.
I was going to say, it looks like there's a spin behind. Graham Brown managing to avoid the spinning number 15 there of Patrick Charlton. And there's another radical spinning off at the exit of turn 5. It's probably one of the most difficult corners on the track, and it looks to have claimed a couple of victims here on this second lap. Such a shame there. Behind, that's Michael LeMay, who's recovering to the track in the orange and blue radical there at the back of shot. But I was just going to say, Hutchinson, whatever his wizardry was to get his tyres up to grip on that, up to operating temperature on that first lap, I certainly need to note down he was using the extra bit of asphalt on the entry to turn 1 on the second lap. He was flying through there.
Certainly was indeed. Bit of a replay here for Tom Langwebb. Got involved in an incident. Was it just a couple of cars? Didn't quite. Oh, bit of a spin for number 24. And that's certainly not what you want to do, is it? That was Paul Clark. And that's why Paul Clark was vacated to the pits rather quickly after that little spin there. Couple of battles again further up and down the field. One battle here is, speaking of Don Langwebb, here he is battling with Martin Booker, who is just behind. You can see in the bottom right hand corner of your screen the battle for P12 as it stands. Michael LeMay is he's around about 10.5, 12 seconds behind after a spin or something. We're going to see if we can get a replay of that for you now. In fact, here it is. Is this, as you were saying, that as you know, Tim, it's a tricky corner, isn't it? So there was a pirouette there and a tandem sliding, unfortunately. Oh, but literally identical. Look at that.
Yeah, it's almost the exact same instant, just one at 25 yards or so further down the track. Such a difficult corner, turn 5. You come flying down the S's, which is the most probably the most enjoyable section of this track. If you're in a car like these Radicals, they've got high grip, high downforce. We see Martin Booker having a bit of a slide on the exit. But through turn 5, it's a bit more clunky, really, isn't it? There's a big curb on the inside, and then on the outside of the corner, there's rather deceiving curbing that looks like you can run and use all of it, but it's very much bumpy. And if you're just a little bit unsettled, hit one of those bumps in the wrong place, catch a slide slightly wrong, and you find yourself spinning to the inside, or even worse, to the outside, and making even heavier contact with the wall. It's quite an innocuous corner, but it's certainly a challenge in its own right.
It's certainly absolutely true. You are absolutely true. What doesn't help the situation as well is these cars, they're pretty, they're light cars. They are not heavy by any stretch of the imagination. So any little problem, any little bump that you go through, it's exaggerated by the fact that these cars are just so light and they're so low to the ground. A GT car, you can just see there, the car doesn't look happy going over them, as you were mentioning there, Tim. A GT car, much more willing to go over them, even in an LMP2 car to a certain degree. The other thing that doesn't help with these cars is they're a really short little wheelbase. They're a tiny, tiny little car. I don't know if you've, again, people watching have ever seen one up close, but it's a very, very small package. The LMP2 cars, while they are still relatively small, they're quite considerably bigger than something like this. So it just really hasn't got much going for them, I don't think, in terms of the curves here. But Phil Glover trying to go up the inside of Martina Ward. Is that going to be a position? No, because Martina Ward vetoes that and goes, nope, you're not having that, and maintains P8 as it stands at the moment.
Yeah, a look to the inside, almost get the feeling he was just trying to distract Martina Ward. And again, though, he's got the run through the final corner. They are side by side into the sweeping turn 1, and up the inside goes Phil Glover. A fantastic clean move. He's going to stay to the inside now and try and defend the position. Doesn't even have to. The move is signed, sealed and delivered on the run up the hill to turn 2s and 3, and then down this sweeping section. Now he hasn't got a car in front of him, so not really got that reference point. You can find yourself trapped in the train as you follow the brake lights in the rear wing of the car in front. And now let's see if he can stretch his legs and kick on it and close the gap to the cars in front. There's a couple of seconds up the road to Dave Kirkman.
Indeed there is. You just watched the replay there. That was Graham Brown getting past Mike Busson, who just went a little, just a fraction wide that cost him a position. But again, there's a little bit of a train here. This is the train in question, currently being arguably led by Phil Glover, although Phil has pulled around about a second now on Martina Ward. Is Martina Ward going to possibly lose another position too? Phil Jocelyn tries to go up the inside. Does Phil? Nope. Again, Martina Ward carrying a very, very good amount of speed through 10A and then utilising that all the way through turn B as well. Very, very impressive. Like it's when you have the overspeed going into 10A, it's quite, in a way, it can be quite easy to make that move stick. But Martina Ward is really being able to push forward. And it's fantastic to see, utilising the downforce of these cars. You can really drive them quite aggressively into a corner, utilise the downforce to slow the car down throughout the main corner, and then obviously then power out as you would normally. So, really nice to see that, sort of really playing into its own, and Martina Ward utilising that to its fullest extent. A couple of other positions have happened. I believe Martin Booker has actually passed. And I believe that, there was a position gain from Martin Booker here. Let's just have a look. Okay, this was going down into turn 8. This is very, very committed indeed for Martin Booker. Up the inside. To be fair, Dave Dowson didn't really have anywhere to go, did he?
Absolutely not. A very clean move there as we see side by side. This is Martin Booker and Phil Jocelyn on the run down towards 10A. And actually it looks like Martin Booker able to hold on to the spot quite convincingly. Jocelyn getting out of it before the chicane that rounds out the lap. It looks like ahead. Phil Glover looked to be kicking on and closing the gap to Dave Kirkman, but in that previous tour of the Road Atlanta circuit, everything looks to have bunched back up again, and Kirkman is now leading the train of cars. Martina Ward's closed back up onto Glover, bringing Booker and Jocelyn along for the ride as well. So we've got quite the train of radicals, and although you might lose time following in the dirty air down the hill through the S's here and into the more technical sections like 6 and 7, and of course through the run through the 10A and 10B chicane, you make all of that back up and then some in the straights by getting a rather healthy slipstream off the back of these radicals, which keeps packs of cars together like this. In that camera shot alone, we had maybe 8 cars down from P8 all the way towards the back of the grid there. So it just shows you how close these cars still are. A slide there for Phil Glover. manages to gather it up, but they're going to go 3 wide. That's Martin Booker looking through the middle of Martina Ward as well. So in that whole situation, he's gained 2 spots. It looks like Glover might drop back once more.
Indeed, yes, very, very true, and it's certainly not ideal. It's all starting to kick off, but we everyone's keeping respectful, everyone's keeping clean, which is the main thing, which is what we like to see. Currently, the train is now being led, still arguably by Dave Kirkman. Martina Ward has a little slow run going out of 10B. That's going to allow Phil Jocelyn up the inside of Martina Ward. Is that going to be done, Dusty? Yes, it is. Can Martina make a position back? Depending at the moment, again, as you were saying, this is where you're in the dirty air. If Martina Ward can stay with Phil Jocelyn at this moment in time, then you will see going through down into closing up a little bit. That would have gained a little bit of time. If you can stay down out of turn 9, down into turn A and 10B, that's when you're going to be gaining some positions, as long as you can get the run. But as it turns out, I'm having a look. Martina Ward seems to be quite aggressive over the curves, more so than Phil Jocelyn, which is working in her favour. So a couple more corners to go on turn number, and then we come out of turn number 9. Having a look, Phil Jocelyn doesn't have as much of a run, or doesn't have as much of a toe as Martina Ward, although just a little bit faster at the moment, or as it stands there. So, Graham Brown's actually just by you just saw in your time attack on the left-hand side there. Graham Brown past Mike Busson. We're going to have a quick look at that replay. Possibly some moves as well. Dave Kirkman having to defend quite heavily from Martin Booker. Is Martin Booker going to try and make a lunge? He goes for the lunge. Dave Kirkman locks up a little bit. That's cost him through 10A, but 10B manages to keep it round the inside, hold it through. Martin Booker is forced around the outside. Never going to be a move there. You have to be very, very brave and very, very committed. You've got to have a lot of faith in the other driver next to you as well. So Dave Kirkman holding his own for the moment. It's a bit of a, it's a bit of a shame for Dave Kirkman. He does not want to be in this position because the gap between Kirkman and Thomas is now 7 seconds. So Mike Buss and Jamie Thomas are both just sort of running their own race, to be honest. And there's 2 battles that are up and down the order. One of which is obviously this 5 or 6 car train. Arguably, if I was Dave Kirkman, if Martin Booker wanted to make a move, I probably wouldn't fight it all that much. Dave Dowson's gone a little bit wide there. That's allowed Martina back through. And who was that? That was Dom Lang-Webb. Dom Lang-Webb has now had a moment on the exit of turn 6, turn 7 even. And that has cost a significant amount of time, arguably 8 or 9 seconds.
Yeah, a shame to see another casualty at the bottom of the hill there. But exactly what you're saying there, Dan, about maybe letting someone go. Look, we're a third of the way into this race. There's a lot still to play out. We've got, in fact, almost an entire radical race, normal race in this series still to go ahead of us. So plenty of times we see Phil Glover has actually made the move on Martin Booker. So Booker's gone from attacking to now defending and actually losing the position, looking hopeful to gain and lead this train. He's now dropping back. But Kirkman's really in a difficult position now because every time he has to defend, every time he has to make sure he does everything to hold on to a position. As we see at the top of the hill, collision there, side by side. That was Booker and Glover, it seems, spinning. And everyone tries to avoid. Dave Dowson has a semi-spin as he goes onto the grass to avoid all the carnage in front of him. I was about to say it could all end in tears with everyone running so close together. And Dan, it looks like that's exactly what's happened.
Unfortunately so. It's certainly not ideal, is it? But yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one to keep an eye on, and like I said, unfortunately, it's never going to be. Yeah, that's all you can say. That it is certainly it's a very, very big shame. Don Lang-Webb though now has someone else to race because Phil Jocelyn's had a bit of a moment, and that is a battle that's moved down and dusted for Don Lang-Webb. And then side by side, oh, that was very, very tasty there from Jamie Thomas. He decided, lock up for Jamie. Wow. How did Graham Brown miss? Oh my goodness! I need to watch that again from the roll bar on Graham Brown. That must have been a. Are we going to see? I tell you what, is it going to be? Oh yeah, Graham Brown's going to need a new race suit after that, isn't he? Let's be honest. Wow.
Absolutely, but he'll be smiling, I reckon, because after the send on the way into 10A and 10B, and almost a little bit of a slap across the face to say the position's mine in that XJR15 liveried Radical, then a spin on the exit of the corner and back Graham Brown goes through, so he'll hold on to the position. Very close indeed, great reactive driving. Certainly
so indeed. There is... Simon Edwards has caught up with John Hutchinson a little bit. I don't know if John Hutchinson has had a bit of a moment or anything, but Simon Edwards, it's certainly there now, isn't he? Going through, the gap is only 0.3 of a second. Dave Dowson has actually got off track. We're going to get a replay of that in a few moments' time. But there is John Hutchinson, the rear, the gearbox of John Hutchinson. And Simon Edwards is there or thereabouts. There is there's nothing realistically in between them. Arguably, Simon Edwards is in the better position here because he's got an opportunity to save some fuel. Let's have a quick look at what happened here with Dave Dowson. Oh, spin on the exit of turn 7. That is not good. It's certainly, I don't think that's going to be the last we're going to see of that, unfortunately.
No, that it seems to be the real sticking point for the drivers this evening, and with all the factors we alluded to earlier in terms of just how bumpy that part of the track is, it's no surprise as Martin Booker calls to pit lane. I think that could be our first strategic pit stop, our first mandatory visit to pit road. Looking at the times though, Dan, you said there about Simon Edwards closing up and John Hutchinson. A couple of laps ago, he was the better part of 0.7 slower than Edwards, so all the time just seemed to disappear. And I don't think that that's just McHutchinson's pace. I do think that there was a mistake somewhere out on track. Could have been as much as a slide out of a certain corner that you had to gather up and maybe hit the brake pedal to make sure the thing didn't loop round. So it does show that although McHutchinson is potentially able to just walk away from Edwards a little bit in this first 10 or so laps, that lead that must have been over a second is now down to less than 0.3. It's closing up for a P1.
It is indeed. It is. It's closing or it's maintaining. I think we may see this from Simon Edwards. A little bit moving forward. This is the calm before the storm. Simon Edwards isn't going to make a move. Instead, he's going to sit there, simply save the fuel, and then once the fuel has been saved, then you're going to see, possibly after the pit stops, then we're going to see it all start to kick off. But Paul Crabb tries to go. So that was Phil Glover. That wasn't Phil Glover, no, that was Paul Crabb up the inside of Michael LeMay. That was a move done and dusted. But what's happened? Oh, Phil Glover, he's coming to the pits. I was sitting there going, what's going on? But Phil Glover is one of the early pit callers. Interesting enough. Martin Booker, Patrick Charlton, Dave Dowson. We've had a lot of people that have pitted. Obviously, unfortunately, I think this may have been a little bit too early, but the halfway mark is a realistic place to pit. I would always try and use as much fuel up as I could and run the tank dry. That way you don't have to put as much fuel in the car, meaning a shorter pit stop. Doesn't always work like that, but that would what I would tend to do if at all possible. But that has meant that Paul Crabb is now released. Gap to Phil Jocelyn is 1.4 seconds. Meanwhile, the closest gap we have now on track is between Hutchinson and Edwards.
Yeah, this pit stop's really going to cause a bit of a headache for the drivers. Like you say, time to be found in just taking a shorter stop. I would want to run over the halfway mark potentially, see if I could get to lap 20, because you get to this point here where other people are making their stops and the track suddenly clears up and you find yourself in all this clean air and out of the battles, and those that you've been side by side with for the opening half of the race are suddenly half a minute or so behind. Use that clean air. Okay, yes, the tyres have had a bit of work put into them, but you're up to speed, you're in the rhythm, and you've got an opportunity to just lay some laps down and hopefully set up a really nice quick stop for yourself in towards the middle second part of the race, and then find yourself in a great position once you rejoin on track. And this battle though between McHutchinson and Edwards, I wonder who's going to blink first. I wonder who's going to come to pit lane first, because that really ups the ante. Once one heads down pit lane, it's almost that situation we see in Formula One where we hear box opposite, do the opposite of the driver in front of you. I wonder if McHutchinson pits, whether Edwards' is best bet at retaking the lead is to stay out and try and set some faster times. As they fly down the hill now, still together, Hutchinson and Edwards nose to tail. So yeah, this pit stop situation for the race lead, I think, is really going to be a crucial factor on this race. I feel like McHutchinson's got the pace to keep Edwards at bay, and Edwards doesn't quite have enough to get up to the back of the race leader, the number 69, and make the move. And as we see there, running wide on the exit on the run up towards the longest straight on the track, that's crucial time loss. He's a little bit out of the slipstream range, I would say, or at least not gaining too much from it. A distant tow for Edwards there, but that's again just allowed McHutchinson a bit more breathing space, a bit more room to think. And as the second driver, as P2, you want to put the pressure on the race leader. Get the feeling that Hutchinson cuts across the track on the exit of 10B there on the run up the hill and under the bridge, as if to feint to pit lane. And then Edwards sees that that's not what's happening and continues on his way. A little bit of gamesmanship and mind games potentially going on between the leading pair.
Sorry, we're back. Sorry, I was trying to offer you some support there, Tim, but I had my mic muted, which is never good, is it? But we're all back now. Yeah, certainly so. A couple of battles starting to develop a little bit further down the order. Oh, Michael Lemmay's gone a little bit wide. That's allowing Phil Glover to go through, so I'm sure he's going to be like, thank you very much. And up the inside does Phil Glover go. Yeah, so I'm just having a quick look. We've got a couple more people that have come into the pits. Not too much. Paul Crabb was one of the people that have... one of the drivers that have now come into the pit. The strategies now that are playing into effect, I mean, arguably, the further you are up the field, and we can see actually the top 9 are yet to pit. And because the top 9 are yet to, are yet to pit, I think that's given a good opportunity for. We're seeing a nice sort of split strategy here, and arguably this is actually going to be able to decide sort of what strategy is quicker. We're not 100% sure yet, but it is always something to keep an eye out of. Patrick Charlton's just had a moment. What has happened to Patrick Charlton? I'm not entirely sure what has gone on here. This is going through turn 4. Is it just a little bit too much on the... Oh, it's a bit of a wiggle. And that... it's a bit of a wiggle still. Oh my goodness. Oh, that was a brave move. Someone needs another new race suit. Oh dear, yes, that's certainly not what you want to see, is it? That actually stemmed, so that crash basically happened it took about 3 corners to finally happen.
Yeah, I wonder how soon after his pit stop that was, or whether he had got up to speed on the tyres and brought them into the operating window and just had that loss of grip potentially on a slightly cooler set than the ones he was previously on. But down pit lane, Martina Ward, Graham Brown's plenty of drivers now into this second pit window that we might start seeing to open here as the front 2 lock together. This is the risk, though, I was about to say, Daniel, of going longer. As we see, Hutchinson heads to pit lane. So this now is the race on the plate for Simon Edwards. Can he set a faster in-lap pit time and out-lap and beat Hutchinson on strategy? Because I don't think he had enough to do it on the track, but we'll certainly see. I was about to say, this is the risk of running longer. Everyone else pits, everyone else is having problems and incidents. If you're the race leaders like Edwards and Hutchinson, find yourself in traffic, and that's a whole nother headache to deal with.
It certainly is, yes, very, very good point. Martin Booker is going to go round the outside of Phil Jocelyn, although Phil Jocelyn has now got the toe. Oh, no, he hasn't. No, tell a lie. That's now not a... I thought it was for a moment there that Phil Jocelyn was going to come back. Not entirely sure. I think Phil Jocelyn may be running a little bit high wing compared to Martin Booker, because Martin Booker really sort of like checked out there going through. But yeah, interesting enough. So that will be a couple more people coming out of the pits. Jamie Thomas and Dave Kirkman are now both in the pit lane, and they will be coming out in a few moments' time. More importantly, though, Simon Edwards has not made his pit stop. Neither has Mike Busson. Are we going to see... Well, Simon Edwards is trying the undercut. He's going to try and pit in later and to try and push forward. Now, if Simon Edwards... And here comes Simon Edwards now. So the main question is, where is John Hutchinson? There is Simon Edwards coming into the pit. Where is John Hutchinson? We know that a pit stop is around about... Well, John Hutchinson's pit stop was 17.7 seconds. Okay? If it's quicker than 17.7 seconds, it needs to be a good second quicker. But that should give just enough. Simon Edwards now comes to a stop. There it is. So 17 seconds. It needs to be probably around the 15 and a half for it to make a difference. Where is John Hutchinson? There he is. Simon Edwards, though, when he is released, he won't have any time at all. He'll be able to just simply come out of his pit stop and then off he goes. We're still seeing, yes, it was quicker. It was about half a second quicker on the pit stop for Simon Edwards. Simon Edwards goes through. Where is he? He's going to be slower, though. That's the important thing. Where's John Hutchinson? Look at that. The gap is under. It's a second. It's actually not a second. It's 0.7 of a second. John Hutchinson has got to capitalise on this very, very quickly. If he doesn't, then what's going to happen is Simon Edwards is just going to be in the complete there's a role reversal. The undercut has worked for Simon Edwards at this particular moment, but John Hutchinson, he's got the additional pace, he's got the additional tyre temp, so he has now gone, that gap has gone from 1.5 seconds to 0.3 of a second, which arguably is well within an opportunity to make an overtake, especially when you've got this long straight into turn 10.
Edwards knows it, doesn't he? Look, he's weaving, maybe generating tyre temp, but more importantly trying to break the slipstream, because Hutchinson is there and ready to make the move and take this position back as they run down the hill through 9 and into 10A. Let's see, does Hutch go for a move up the inside? He's certainly thinking about it. He's certainly into that inside lane, but Edwards just swoops around the outside and holds the position. Soon enough, though, like you say, Dan, he's going to be up to racing speed, and Hutchinson will have to go above and beyond to get the pass done. 1-2 have swapped in the course of 3 laps in the pit stop. This is why we see this strategy play out so importantly. This is why it's so crucial to the race, because you can gain positions and, more importantly, you can lose them.
Yes, absolutely. Very, very impressive stuff. Very impressive stuff, though, from from Simon Edwards. Really, really made it stick when it mattered. I think that was the other important thing, wasn't it? You know, it could have gone. Oh, that was a bit close. Oh my goodness, wow, that was too close for comfort.
I think it was Michael LeMay, but I just saw a puff of smoke on the to the side of the camera, and he was right on the exit at the bottom of the hill, one of the problem corner it seems to be so far this evening. But Edwards and Hutchinson had to get out of the way and avoid that, and Hutchinson would have been, you know, completely blind to the fact that there was a card there. So both race leaders making it through unscathed.
Certainly so, making it unscathed for this time around. John Hutchinson goes up the inside of Simon Edwards. Simon Edwards, a small little lock-up. He's going to go around the inside. This is the battle. Side by side they go, and John Hutchinson maintains that lead. Was there too much of there wasn't too much of a fight from Simon Edwards, and do you know why? I don't think he's too worried. He's got 9 laps to go. It's a role reversal now. All that Simon Edwards needs to do is sit behind within that 0.3 of a second, that 0.4 of a second, and then all of a sudden the gap is going to come down again. The slipstream is going to take into effect, and then we're going to see some additional pace come through and possibly another move. This isn't a bad position for Simon Edwards. Arguably, at this stage of the race, it's almost the better position. You want to be ahead with the last couple of laps, possibly even just the last lap, because then you've got to put yourself in a position where you've only got 2 laps to defend, rather than, in that case, it was 10. So I think Simon Edwards, he's playing the long game here. Not getting sucked into trying to make a move straight away, but instead controlling his pace, controlling, arguably, the race. What's going to happen now, and what you're going to see here, is you are going to see Simon Edwards probably, if he can get on the back of John Hutchinson, really try and push John now. There may be some sort of like dart, moves where he tries to, he'll never make the move, but he's just sort of like, he'll just jink out a little bit just to give that opportunity. So many different tactics now happen here. You can just see as well the gap has come down a little bit. It's now 0.3 of a second again. It went up to about half a second. It's now come back down. Oh, this is exciting stuff. 8 laps remaining. I tell you what, this lap's going, feels like it's going really quick. I don't know about you. I don't know about you, Tim, but this race feels like it's flying by.
I was going to say it's absolutely flown by, but that's because we've had plenty to talk about, and we're going to be strapped in for this remaining 8 laps or so. Like you're saying, Dan, Edwards now is in the position where he can be the aggressor, and he can wait around in that slipstream and make the moves. We see Dave Dowson hit a spin, which he manages to gather up. Excellent car control and recovery there to make sure he doesn't end up in the barrier and damage his race further. Excellent stuff from the number 14 there to keep on track and keep pointing the right way, as Martina Ward has a spin to the inside and collects the wall. That's such a shame. Difficult braking zone. It's completely blind and you're still turning. So as you come off the gas and apply the brake, you've got all this weight transfer, and factor in that you're trying to turn as well. The car's just always unhappy underneath you, braking at the top of the hill there. But the crucial thing for Edwards is, as good as it is to be number 2, like we say, in the position in terms of slipstream and making that move towards the end of the race, you've got to keep up the pace. You've got to latch onto the back of Hutchinson and keep there. Can't afford to make any mistakes. Can't afford to slip and slide and run wide, because then you lose all that time. Then you lose the opportunity to make that late race dive. Factor this in as well. Edwards is in a very strong position in terms of the championship. And here we are in round 9 of 12. Is he going to be taking those risks? There's a lot to play out here for Edwards in terms of making sure he just adds a few more points to his tally. I mean, points for second place is not too bad when at the end of the season we could be seeing him crowned champion.
We may very well do. Absolutely. 7 laps to go now. And it is still Simon Edwards leading, John Hutchinson leading the way. And then Simon Edwards, you can see at the top left of your screen, only about 3/10 behind. There was a bit of a battle between Michael LeMay and Dave Dowson. That gap did come down a little bit, and it's now since extended again. We are seeing a little bit close again. We're going to have to go to the front. This is one of the close battles that we've got. Simon Edwards goes to the inside. Yeah, there you go. He backed out early. Yeah, he's not making the move yet. He doesn't want to make the move yet, I don't think. He's just going to wait. He's going to wait. He's going to wait. He's going to push Hutchinson into a mistake if he can. And if not, may even be a last lap lunge. We'll have to see. It depends how close it is. A battle that's starting to develop. It hasn't developed quite yet. But certainly something that we need to keep an eye out for is Paul Crabb versus... Whoa! John Webb is definitely wanting to make that position. He's wanted to catch up to Paul Crabb a little bit too eagerly. And he goes off nearly... manages to keep it going, though, out of the exit at turn 7. Fantastic stuff indeed.
Yeah. I was just going to say there, Dan, you know, that's the risk. Push on in these cars. We're playing with fine margins, and you can find yourself, like Dave Dowson here, facing the wrong way, having to get back on the grey stuff.
Indeed, we've got a couple of replays coming up, one of which was Paul Crabb. So Paul Crabb has had a spin somewhere. What happened to Dave Dowson? Let's have a look. So, okay, that was the initial Dave Dowson. I could be looking at the wrong one. Actually, no, here we go. This is Dave Dowson having another moment. Oh, dear. Yeah. Dave Dowson got tapped by someone. Who was that? I can't see who that was. Was that Mike Busson? I think it may have been. No, it wasn't. I don't actually know who that was, to be perfectly honest. Either way, certainly not ideal. And this is what happened to Paul Crabb. Apologies for the several replays, but we've got a fair bit of action that has happened when we're not. We haven't actually been on the cameras. Oh, just a little bit. That's going to be into the wall. Not too much damage from Paul Crabb. Just a little bit of a pirouette, and then off he goes again. There will be a bit of front end nose cone damage, admittedly. I don't think it's going to be all that much to worry about. To be fair. Very easy to do, isn't it, on the exit of turn 9, because it seemed, I don't know whether it was just a little bit too early on throttle, then couple that with the curb. Again, very, very aggressive curbs here, especially in a car like this. Just sent the car around a little bit too aggressively.
It's such a clunky corner, is that one. The corner before it has got this lovely camber and swoop to it, and then adverse camber into the second right-hander, and it's just seems so uncomfortable in comparison to the rest of the track as Martin Booker makes his way past Martina Ward on the run down towards 10A. But it's such a strange corner, and the curbs are quite high there. They've got a step to them, so it's not like you've got a progressive kind of angle to it. You have a step and then a flat top surface, so the slightly steeper angled section can really dislodge the car. And if you're already having a moment before you arrive at the curb and then you clobber over it and clip the grass, because there's not much runoff here at all, if any. I don't think there's a corner with asphalt runoff behind it. You just find yourself your instant being multiplied by the nature of the curves and this track in general. But Dan, we say that, we see this, these instants, etc. But this is why this circuit, Road Atlanta, is such an exciting one to drive and race at. Margins for error are non-existent. The track bites back, and we love to see that.
We do indeed, yes. It just adds to that tension, doesn't it? Adds to the excitement, which arguably is what we want. Leaning down, 4 more laps to go, though. The laps are really starting to tick down now. Everyone has done their pit stops, obviously. A few people have unfortunately done a couple more pit stops. And the gaps are starting to really sort of open up now. We're not going to see too much in terms of much battle at the moment. The gaps certainly have spread out. Although one of the gaps we are going to see still continue to come down is John Hutchinson versus Simon Edwards. It's under a second. It opened up quite considerably to about 1.2 seconds. It has now since come down. Simon Edwards was possibly going to get held up. In fact, I think, yes, he just lost about a tenth or so. Couldn't quite see who that was. Who was that? That was Phil Glover. So the gap it's extended to over a second. Arguably, though, it's still within the slipstream window. So what Simon Edwards needs to do is needs to have a good couple of laps. Wow, that was close, wasn't it? Unfortunately, that's extended his gap once more. So the gap is now 1.3 seconds. Oh dear, this is certainly a lap that we're not going to... Simon Edwards is not going to be impressed with himself with this lap, is he? May just be pushing the car a little bit too much. I wonder as well if the tyres have just started to go off at this point. You can just see Simon Edwards. He's not really doing much in different to what he was doing with before. Although John Hutchinson has gone wide. Oh, John Hutchinson has gone wide now. So both tyres are, tyres are starting to drop off. What seems to be for both drivers. This is still anyone's game here because we saw this at Bathurst as well. And it can boil down to simply the last lap, and sometimes even the last corner. We've also seen that in the past as well. But Simon Edwards gets a spring in his step again once more, and you can see just pushing that car that little bit, but keeping the composure once again. And that is allowing John Hutchinson to, well, arguably, looking at the gap on the left-hand side, it's coming down either way.
Yeah, I was going to say, in a grid as close as this and with drivers, I mean, look at the qualifying times and take qualifying times from any point in this season, just how close it is. It's not a battle of being, a matter of being the fastest man out on track. It's sometimes a matter of making the least mistakes is what's going to hand you the victory. And it just looked as, or maybe as the gap extended, that Edwards was pushing too much to try and close it, but actually it looks like the whole gap's just disintegrated now. It's down to less than half a second. So Hutchinson has started to struggle. This aerial shot is fantastic in terms of showing how the elastic band between the two cars gets stretched towards the straights and then decreases in the braking zones. Edwards now is close enough to start picking up a bit of a toe. We've seen him doing a little bit of a dress rehearsal down into 10A, just showing the nose. So, this is where I could be in the final couple of laps. This is the move I could make. Hutchinson is aware of that, but Edwards, I'm sure, will give it a go if he's close enough. Strap yourselves in, Dan. We've got 2 laps to go, and this is really starting to bubble up nicely.
It is indeed, yes. Simon Edwards arguably does have what seems to be the pace at this moment in time. However, that can change within the drop of a hat. There is going to be a little bit of loss now for the downforce. So especially coming through into this complex here, the downforce that is going to be lost by Simon Edwards will cost him a bit of time. You'll see that you'll see the interval start to open up, especially through this fast left-hander of turn 7. And there it is. There is that gap. It's opened up by about a tenth. You just don't have the turn in, the same amount of turn that you would normally, obviously, if you weren't in front. That was why that gap extended. But it obviously is completely negated by the fact that you make up all of the time down onto this straight here. The gap is half a second, and that half a second coming down into 10A and 10B. That's going to be about 0.2 of a second by the time they get there. The slipstream, not as bad as it once was in this cars, but still certainly something that you need to take into consideration. The gap you can just see on the left-hand side, just under 0.3 of a second now. Just dips. Actually, it doesn't dip under the 0.3. It is still just over. Last lap. Here we go then. We've got another bit of a battle a little bit further down between Martina Ward and Phil Glover. So here is Phil Glover trying to push through and try and get another position on Martina Ward. Is it going to be, unfortunately, Martina Ward nursing quite a bit of damage here. So I wonder if this is just going to be, unfortunately, Martina is going to try and defend as much as she can. I just feel, though, that come the straight, it's just going to be a lost cause, unfortunately.
Yeah, it could be just that. Martina Ward definitely carrying damage and looking just to make it home to the end. But Hutchinson is doing the job he needs to do on this final lap. If anything, he's extended his race lead over Simon Edwards through the opening half of the lap. He's now got around 2 kilometres to the flag. It's not that a big slide, a huge slide, and that's allowed Edwards through. Dan, a change for the lead. Last lap, half a lap to go.
Well, I tell you what, though, Simon Edwards actually got checked up a little bit by John Hutchinson. John Hutchinson pulls now back into the slipstream. He's going to have the slipstream. Simon Edwards darts to the inside. What is John Hutchinson going to do? He's going to force him on the inside. Jink back out to the outside at the last minute. Tries to go on the outside at 10A. Oh, my goodness. Oh, he spun it. No, John Hutchinson spins. It was an all or nothing move. Unfortunately, it turned out to be not what he wanted. But Simon Edwards goes off as well. Oh, my goodness. Does that mean John Hutchinson's going to win? What is going on here? John Hutchinson still comes through. No, Simon Edwards takes it. Oh, my goodness. What on earth happened there? We've got still a battle here. Dave Kirkman versus Dong Lang Webb. I'm just astounded at what happened there right at the very end. Oh my word. Martina Ward lost that position, I believe, to Phil Glover, unfortunately. Only by a couple of tenths of a second, though. But Dong Lang Webb versus Dave Kirkman. Dave Kirkman is certainly the position, not in the position that I'd want to be in at this moment.
As they fly down the backstretch, look, weaving from side to side, trying to break the slipstream. Lang Webb at the moment round the outside, which will become the inside. A little bit of contact there on the run down into 10A. And can Kirkman hold on around the outside? They are still side by side, but a brave move from Lang Webb to hold on, get the run out of 10B, over the crest, down the hill, across the line. P7 gained.
Very, very good stare from Dom Lang Webb. A last-minute lunge. Very good stuff. Martin Booker finishes ahead of Paul Crabb. There is Dom Lang Webb that's just stopped in the middle of the circuit. But again, race is over. Doesn't mean too much. Oh, wow. We're going to get the results for you in a few moments' time. But that was... What an end. How on earth... Simon Edwards, I would imagine Simon Edwards will be doing the lottery tomorrow.
He should be. He definitely should be.
That was just absolutely madness. I can't get over that. I've never seen a race end. I've never seen a race end like that ever.
No, neither. It comes down to what we were saying. You know, it's a matter of who makes the least mistakes. And, you know, in a grid so close, in between two drivers as well, fighting for the win, who were so close for the entire 30 laps. Sometimes it's just a matter of making the least errors. But suddenly at the end there, it seemed like nobody wanted to win it and they just wanted to go off into the grass instead. But a really close fought race, and Edwards just manages to limp across the line.
Indeed. Very... certainly an excitable race. But here are your official finishing positions, bar any penalties, etc., etc. Simon Edwards taking the race win by 1.3 seconds on John Hutchinson. Frankie Dixon takes third, Mike Buston in P4 with Graham Brown in fifth. Jeremy Thomas sixth, John Lang Webb in P7 with a very, very good move on Dave Kirkman around the outside of the last corner in P8. That is the position that Dave Kirkman finishes in. Martin Booker P9 with Paul Crabb rounding out your top 10. Phil Glover takes P11 with Martina Ward in P12. Phil Jocelyn 13th. Michael LeMay in P14 with Dave Dowson in the top 15. Paul Clark finishes in 16th. Paul LeMay finishing 17th, 4 laps down. And then Patrick Charlton finishing in P18, 15 laps down. And then Tim Adcock, unfortunately not able to start this race, will be scoring no points at all. Oh, we've got a little bit of a breather, and then we're going to be having a conversation, hopefully with a couple of drivers. Depends who we can get in. I'm just having a quick look through. We've got a couple of people to have a chat with, and one of the people we're going to have a chat with is Phil Glover. Tim, do you want to have a chat with Phil?
Absolutely. Let's bring Phil in and have a word. Phil, thank you very much for joining us here post-race. P11 for you, gained 6 positions, one of the highest gainers out there on the track tonight. But how was your race? It certainly looked eventful for everyone in the field tonight at Road Atlanta.
Yeah, it certainly was eventful for me. 6 places. I think I did that last week, actually, Daniel. So, yeah, I didn't get a great qualifying, but I just let everybody go from the start and hoping that they might make a mistake. That's not very sportsmanlike, is it? But it happened, so I managed to pick up a few places. And then, I don't know, midway through the race, I was doing pretty well. And then I'm not sure whether Martin and I came together. But anyway, I managed to get round with a meatball for about 3 laps, and then just enough to allow me to then go in and get the repairs and fill up. So it didn't work out too bad in the end, really.
And we obviously are doing the pit stop race tonight. How did you find dealing with the strategy? What was your game plan coming into it? Obviously, like you say, things changed when you had the meatball flag. But what was your thinking coming into the race? Split it into 2 equal halves? Did you want to go long, go short? What was your plan?
Yeah, well, gosh, I don't know what my plan was really. I knew that we probably needed to put maximum fuel in, so and therefore I guessed it was going to be somewhere halfway. I reckon I probably pitted about lap 10 or maybe before that, I didn't know whether it was going to last me all the way round, to be honest, but it did. Yeah, it adds a bit more strategy, doesn't it? You've got to think about it. And I always forget when I'm practicing to look how much fuel I'm using per lap, and then panic at the start of the race.
I think we all make that same mistake, don't we, Phil, as sim races? But how about Road Atlanta then? Last week we had Phillip Island. The week before that, even, we had Bathurst. It's a number of roller coaster circuits, one after the other. How are you enjoying these tracks and driving them in the Radical SR8?
To be honest, I prefer the tighter, more challenging tracks, to be honest. The quicker tracks I don't seem to be as good on for some reason. So, for example, Silverstone, I'm completely hopeless on that. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it suits my style a bit better. I'm usually at the back, whatever track.
Well, you say that, but you're usually gaining positions, Phil. 2 weeks in a row, like you say, 6 positions up on the grid. Next week is Motegi, Twin Ring Motegi, the Grand Prix, the full layout there. Any time to practice, get ahead of the game on that one? Is it a track that you think you'll enjoy?
I'm definitely going to have to practice because I don't think it's in my track list. So probably tomorrow I need to purchase that one and give it a go. Is it a quick flowing track? Or?
It's a bit more technical, Phil. I think it might be up your street if that's something you enjoy. It's certainly a unique challenge, actually, is Motegi. It's got a certain character to it. Nice flat curbs is obviously used in motorbike racing. So there's none of these bumpy, glumpy curbs that we have here at Road Atlanta. Plenty of straights for overtaking. I think it might be one you enjoy, Phil, but I mean, feel free to correct me next week post-race.
Yeah, well, let's hope that I can say you were absolutely right.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much, Phil, for dropping in post-race. Great to hear from you.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Thanks.
There we go. Phil Glover. Pleasure to catch up with him as always. We've got a fair few people in, so we're going to have to rattle through them relatively quickly. I think, do you know what? Let's bring in a couple of people I'm going to bring in. I tell you what, let's bring everyone in, shall we? Why not? Let's bring everyone in. So we've got, currently in the booth, we've got Dave Kirkman, John Hutchinson, and then Simon Edwards. Simon and John, I just want to touch on well, let's be honest. It was a good race. It was a very, very good race throughout the entire 30 laps. But that last lap, arguably the last 3 corners, I'm still struggling to get over myself. So, Simon, just touch on you first. You did win, obviously. Tell us, just go through the last 3 corners with us, because that must have been an emotional roller coaster for yourself.
Yeah, it was a very strange ending, wasn't it, to the race? I saw that John had got next to me, and then I was too busy looking in my mirror to see where he was, and didn't realise that he'd actually spun, and then I forgot to turn into the last corner. And luckily, I bounced off the wall in the correct angle and managed to just scramble across the line.
I mean, arguably, it obviously all works in your favour anyway. But yeah, I can imagine. I can certainly imagine that it wasn't particularly that must have been sort of heart in your mouth. One thing I did notice as well, and John will touch on this for yourself actually. The tyres. Now, how were the tyres for you both? It looked like they were just starting to drop off at the end of the last sort of like 4 or 5 laps. Is that something you were noticing, John, especially within the last sort of 4 or 5 laps of the race?
Yeah, definitely. So the last maybe 4 laps, going round turn 1 was getting ever closer to the edge, so they were definitely wearing. But no, it was an awesome race. Congrats to Simon for winning. I just threw it away in the last lap. I think I would have run out of fuel anyway, so I ran out of fuel at the bridge. So
oh, really?
Even if he was behind me, he would have passed me, I think. But he sent it into the wall himself. Eventful.
It certainly was, wasn't it? I think that's that's definitely the best way. Definitely the best way to put it. I think also as well, John, from your perspective, that lunge going out, right, trying to go around the outside. I mean, that was so committed. What was the thought process there? Was it simply just sort of, was it calculated? Was it just, right, we'll put it in, and we'll sort of see sort of where it goes. I imagine the idea for you was to try and go on the outside of 10A for the inside then of turn B.
Yeah, well, it didn't leave me the inside, so I had to go the outside.
Yeah.
And I just locked the rears and just spun it round. But there was no contact between it. It was just me, lost it myself. I thought I had it to the last lap. I'm coming round turn 5. I says, right, okay, that's fine. And then up at the double right-hander, I just lost it a little, and I let him get right up back past me. The rest is history.
Certainly so, but absolutely fantastic stuff from the both of you. Real pleasure to be able to watch you guys battle out for that. That was absolutely amazing. Dave, just a very quick one as well for yourself. Obviously P8 for you in the race there, finishing. It's pretty close between yourself and Dom at the end. Unfortunately, just getting picked as well with a very committed move from Dom around the outside. Talk us through your race.
Oh my god. I haven't done any practice. I haven't turned the machine on for 2 weeks. So I literally did 3 laps of qualifying.
Nice.
That was my practice. And just before the race, Graham very kindly gave me his setup. So I didn't even know how the setup was when I first started. So it was a bit crazy. I've never done that before. But I lucked in by kind of avoiding the carnage at the start. Got quite a good position, and basically I was driving in safe mode for most of the race. I really struggled out of the double right-hander to get it off the corner, and I was losing about half a second a lap to everyone. But I had a really good race with Martin in the first stint, and managed to kind of get him back. I don't know whether you saw that. And then later on, right at the end, obviously with Dom, I knew he was going to catch me. But I told him that I wasn't going to let him pass me. So I went as deep as I could into that last corner. But he got past me in the end, unfortunately. But yeah, fantastic race considering I didn't put any practice in all week. So yeah, I'm pleased with that.
Well, certainly so. I certainly wouldn't be complaining, about that. Going into next week, though, I suppose what's the... I'm hoping, obviously, we're going to be able to do some practice in preparation for next week. I mean, this seems to have... almost the no practice seems to have worked.
Well, yeah, the last race that I did quite well with no practice. But to be honest, it's not a habit I want to make the most of.
No, certainly not.
If I can practice, I will do. I've just been too busy. But yeah, I would like to... is it Motigo?
Twin Rim Mategi, yes.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. So I'd like to have a go at that before actually getting the race. I knew this track from previous seasons, so it wasn't so much of a big deal. Whereas that one, I think I really need to get my eye in, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a track that isn't used all that much. Yeah, it's again pleasure to have you three in the booth with us. Just quickly, final sort of bits of wrap up from everyone. Simon, anyone you'd like to give a quick shout out to on the broadcast?
I think I'll give a shout out to John there because he raced so well there and he was very unlucky to not win. And he's come back from an injury, a real world injury, so it's a pity he didn't get a full reward for that speed there. So I'll dedicate this shout out. I won't say win because that's like painful, isn't it? I'll shout out to John.
Certainly so, fantastic stuff. John, same question yourself. Anyone you'd like to give a quick shout out to?
Yeah, give a shout out to my wife and daughter. I don't know if you can hear them yapping away in the background, so shout out to them too. And congrats to Simon.
Fantastic stuff. Very, very good stuff indeed. And Dave, final question to yourself again. Same thing. Who you want to give a shout out to on the stream today?
Well, I said I'd give a shout out to Dom because I always enjoy racing with him. But I'd like to give a shout out to my partner, Julie, who's watching the stream. So, yeah, that's who I'm going to say hello to.
No, fantastic.
And my mum, obviously. I've got to say hello to my mum.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, gentlemen, absolute pleasure. And we look forward to catching up with you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dan.
And there we go. And that was all she wrote, Tim. That is it for round number 9. Round number 10 next week is at Twin Ring Mategi. Just absolutely Marvellous. Just final quick thoughts from yourself, and then we'll be able to wrap up.
Yeah, I'm really grateful to be on board again this evening. Thank you very much for having me on, Dan. I've really enjoyed the racing once again. Look, we say it, I feel like every week in this championship, and from the races I've watched and from the races I've commentated on, that it always comes down to the wire, and you couldn't say that more so about tonight's race. I mean, just showed you how hard these guys were pushing. 2 mistakes right at the end. Okay, yes, Edwards maybe wasn't looking where he was going, but final lap, it still was up in the air as to who was going to win it. Exactly what we'd love to see, and I hope that this championship continues on in the same vein going forwards. But yeah, thank you very much for having me on.
No problem at all. Pleasure as always. But that is it. We have to wrap up now. Thank you everyone for tuning in. The pleasure is always ours to be able to allow you to watch some fantastic racing. We'll be back. I'm going to try that again. We will be back next week at Twin Ring Motegi for what is going to be some more fantastic racing. Make sure you stick around for that. If you haven't already, please make sure you do like and subscribe to the Absolute Sim Racing channel. We broadcast several times throughout the week in various different series, so do make sure you catch up with all of our racing that we have going on. But everyone, all that is left to say is, as always, make sure you take care and stay safe. We'll see you next week.